Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 177. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're watching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link and see what we have to offer. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. My two dialogue partners for episode 177, this came about, Andy, Tim, and I have been involved in some of the ongoing Facebook discussions, and I thought it would be fun for the three of us to just get together and have a little conversation about the world of Jeet Kune Do. So sit back and enjoy episode number 177 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. You are a quinquagenarian.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quinquagenarian. I learned that word today.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what else I came across today? Ultra crespidarian? You know what that means? Have you ever heard that word?
No.
Yeah. So ultra crepidarian. Here's what it means. It refers to somebody who expresses opinions on matters outside the scope of their knowledge or expertise.
Nice. Well, I'll be putting that one on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that might be me. I don't know.
All right. So I'll do an official intro and add it on to the top of this. I want to thank you guys for the quick notice agreeing to come on here and talk with me. The thing that I mentioned to the two of you, we'll do Tim first, because Tim, you're younger than Andy, right?
No, I'm older. I'll be 52 this year, so I'm about a year and a half older. Yeah.
Wow. What happened to all of the 30-something-year-old JKD people, huh?
Oh, we got a few of them in class down here. We got some younger ones even. We're trying to steal their youth and their vigor.
Yeah. So, okay. So in all the back and forth that we've gone through over the past few days, I noticed something, Tim, that you said, having studied academic writing.
Mm-hmm. Taught it even, yeah.
Yeah, and taught it. Okay. So I wanted to ask you about that then. How does that how do you use that in debate and discussion?
Well, anytime you're talking about academic writing, you're talking about research, and you're going to cite your sources, and you are going to use several sources, and going to also look at opinions that do not agree with your thesis or your conclusions, because you need to look at both sides or many sides. And I believe to go about, I mean, at least it's an officially recognized way to go about looking at getting to what we would consider true.
Right. So yeah, because I guess some people just consider truth to be, well, I heard this and I saw this, so that's truth. Because yeah, you saw it, right? And in our case, a magazine article.
Right.
You saw a magazine article. So isn't that fact that the magazine article exists as opposed to truth?
Well, yeah, sure. The magazine article.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the magazine article exists, or magazine articles exist. And I mean, I've spent enough time in multimedia as well, journalism, to kind of tell you how that may or may not be truth. But yeah, I mean, that's especially when you're talking about an interview, you're talking about the expression or someone's version of something, and that's one source, one of many. If you're looking at researching, you're going to look at all sources.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I think then we have a lack of a lack of multiple sources and then even confirmation from sources or confirmation from authoritative sources.
Right. Yeah.
What we have here is, well, I heard this and here's this magazine article, so that proves that I'm right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that proves that I'm right about someone else who's not even in the article, but who is somewhat part of the discussion, but that proves that I'm right about that person.
Yeah. Sounds like
yeah.
academic Chinese whispers or something.
Okay. All right. So then, Andy, the thing that makes, so that's what makes me envious of Tim. The thing that makes me envious of you is you're having studied, it's religious studies and philosophy.
Right. I was a philosophy major, religious studies was my minor.
Yeah, see, I don't qualify to talk to people like the two of you.
Of course.
I failed 5 O levels in high school. You know,
Capture attention. That's all.
Yeah.
Harder than than what they're giving you the credit for.
Yeah. So okay. So then, Andy, how do you then approach discussion, especially these types of discussions that we have in JKD?
Well, my instinct is to basically just focus on what is knowable, what is actually knowable. And the thing that has most kind of bothered me about the way that I see these discussions going on is that when it comes to JKD and Bruce Lee, everybody wants to focus on Bruce Lee's writings. Although Bruce Lee didn't intend his writings to be published yet, they weren't in a finished product. Right. So when Tim and I were talking about this with sources, you have layers of sources. It's like, obviously that's one of your primary sources, but by any means whatsoever, the surviving people that Bruce Lee trained would be primary to the writings. Potentially, they would be right up there with the writings. And it reminds me so much of in religious studies, basically, you're talking about the Bible, like in Christianity. So basically the 4 Gospels are supposed to be the primary sources within the Bible, but yet they weren't written by the people that they were claimed to be written by. They're not firsthand accounts from what we can tell historically. So it's almost like that's a thing that we're looking at here is the writings are only part of the context. You have to try to get the oral history. The oral history has to be taken into account wherever it appears, and then you have to put everything together and then try to decide what's knowable based on the information you have.
Yeah.
And
okay. So the timer up here says that we've been on for 7.5 minutes. We could cut this short to like 8 minutes and just come up with the solution for all this nonsense right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because let me ask you this. What was your life like? I want to answer from both of you. What was your life like before Facebook?
Tim first.
Oh, me. Okay. Well, before Facebook, I'm not very much of a sit around homebody anyway, so I don't think it was overly different than what it is now, other than I've got a heck of a lot of insight into people I barely know, their deep thoughts, which is, good and bad. Mm-hmm. The positive, I know more people, or I'm connected to more people. The negative is I'm connected to more people. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't find myself in such conversations with people that I didn't know, like you do with Facebook. There just kind of wasn't that, and especially when if we want to call these different factions or different camps or whatever we want to call the different sides of these arguments, I don't think I was in much contact with people that would have been in another camp. In fact, I don't even really know of the existence of quote unquote other camps, honestly. And I never knew that there was a split like there is, to be honest with you. So I guess it was more harmonious in that respect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just not knowing about them made your life more harmonious. Huh?
Right. The ignorance was bliss.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In my experience with Facebook, I normally hate publicity. I hate being on Facebook. I usually post nothing personal. But the last 2 years have been interesting. I'm at home more with my kids right now. I think I made some jokes online. For me personally, I'm just at home. I got a 2-year-old surprise baby. So I'm sitting around babysitting her. That's why I have more time to be on Facebook and get into arguments. Normally I pride myself on not being on Facebook. So I'm hoping that I can change that pretty damn quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I used to spend 6 minutes a week on Facebook because I wrote a blog for my school, and then somebody said you should put it up on Facebook as well. So I wrote that blog Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So after writing it would, because I would write it. I would wake up at 6 a.m. and start writing and try to have it done by 8 a.m.
Wow.
And then I would post it on Facebook, and that would be it. That would be my Facebook contribution for the day. All right. And I did that for 8 years or something. But 3 years ago, when we kind of felt, did we lose? We lost Andy.
I don't know. I saw him blip. Yeah, it looks like he went away.
Wait, hang on. Okay. Well, he'll press it. We'll press on. He'll come back in. So yeah. So that used to be my Facebook existence. But then 3 years ago, when I kind of fell into the live thing, because it wasn't even my idea. Carlos said, "Hey, let's go live on Facebook and talk about whatever." I was like, "Okay," and that's how the podcast came about. So I'm with you on this, Tim. I'm happy to make the acquaintance of a lot more people in the JKD world, but then some of it I can pretty much do without,
Right. Yeah.
It just before we came on here, I because here's what it's made. Tell me what you make of this. This is what it's made me more aware of. Like you mentioned that there are different factions in the JKD world. Okay, well, to me that's to be expected, but
right.
it's the amount of, a lot of the talking seems to be being done by people who only just came along.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? They're not people from, let's say, even the 70s, right? Or the 70s and the 80s. It's a lot of people whose opinions and ideas, to a certain degree, seem to be informed by current day mentality. So this is what I mean. Have you seen now the thing that Jeet Rebel was Bruce Lee's grappling instructor?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that go around.
Yeah, that. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well,
welcome back, Sonny.
Is he back?
Sorry, I think I heard everything. You guys are talking about Jeet Rebel?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So my thought there is it's the problem I see with a lot of these discussions. We're going to start arguing over how we define words and what we mean by phrases. Was Jeet Rebel Bruce Lee's grappling instructor? Well, do we mean that? Did Bruce Lee go to the Jeet Rebel Grappling Academy and take classes? I don't know. I've never heard anything like that. But Gene himself has said that he showed Bruce Lee some things, and why not? They were friends. I mean, as I was growing up, I was studying a traditional Okinawan karate and doing kickboxing. I had two friends that were judo guys. I had some guys that were friends that were taekwondo guys, some guys that were kung fu guys. We all got together and exchanged stuff all the time. Were they my instructors? Sure. In an informal way? Absolutely. They taught me some things. I taught them some things. So did I go to a school that they owned? No, I didn't. And did I take a class with them? No, I didn't. So, I mean, how do we define these things? Yeah. I think it's to think that he didn't learn something from Jeet Rebel, because clearly they spent time together. You're going to exchange. You know, that's just natural. We all do.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand how it gets to that level where I mean, there was even stuff about, well, he probably got his black belt
from
Jeet Rebel because he already had a black belt in judo from Seattle.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
We have the pictures here at the academy too, and I remember Sifu Dan had told us the story of that once, and I think Andy, I think I heard it more from you about it. I wasn't overly concerned about it, but I mean, Sifu Dan's never said, "Oh yeah, Bruce Lee had a black belt in judo." He said he very much liked judo, and he tells us what throws he specifically liked from judo, and we go through several of them in the level 3 class when we're going through something like a Jiao Sao series or whatever like that. So
right. Yeah.
Right.
So obviously, I'm trying to engage in conversation with you guys without also engaging in anything that could be construed as character assassination. But
okay, I mean, you know, when you look at, and I think I think I've got a good judgment of Andy's character. Actually, this is really fun because I've actually not ever been face to face to meet Andy. We've never met each other this way, but we've become very good friends through Facebook, and actually that's one of the benefits of it. I've got to meet someone like him without being, you know, having to meet him face to face yet. So I think his character, my character, same way. We have no interest in assassinating anybody's character. I actually don't have anything personally against anyone that we're talking. They have opinions. They're very passionate, and that's very clear. We just have a problem with misrepresentation of someone saying, "Oh, well, this is what goes on here." Well, you're never here. You're not here in this building, the one I'm sitting in right now. And so you're not here. You can't really tell me what goes on here, and you can't speak about that with authority. But, you know, I've got nothing against the other factions, if that's what we want to call them. Right. And what they're doing. You know, I think they're doing a marvelous job at what they're doing. It looks like they're passionate. They train. I think that's phenomenal. Yeah. And, you know, in the end, I think it would be great to be more friendly. You know, I'd certainly, and I think you're doing a good job at trying to keep everyone courteous, which I think is extremely important. You had mentioned Wednesday about this being a reflection of our instructors, and I think that's right. You know, we don't want to. I know that's something my two main instructors here, Hartzell, you know, I don't think either one would be wanting to approach the discussions in the way a lot of it has been approached.
Yeah, I mean, not in a million. And I was thinking about this before we went live. Why we're going to speak for you, Andy. Why Andy's approach would be the same, because Andy descends from Rick Fay.
Right.
Rick Fay will tell you. He will tell you he's not that big of a Bruce Lee fan. He's a Dan Inosanto fan.
Right.
Right. You know. So now, without knowing Andy, without necessarily knowing him personally, when I hear him talk, I can kind of deduce where it's coming from. Right, because of what I know about him. But what I find is that people absolutely refuse to think in terms of, okay, how could this have come about? Why would a person have said this or done this? You know, it's like there's no thinking about it. It's just paint as negative a picture as you can in order to, I guess there must be some point that they're trying to make.
Sure.
And I'm not too sure what that point is, because just like you said, Tim, I admire the passion that these guys have for their art. Being influenced by Dan Inosanto, I would, because that's the way he is.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and so he would never say, "Oh, stay away from those guys." Never.
No, not at all.
You know, so I look at it as, here's what we have in common. Let's build on that. You know?
Right.
Now, if we disagree, we disagree. But I'm never gonna say something about Ted Wong or any other JKD notable,
Right.
and be like, oh, well, he didn't know what he was saying, or he didn't know what he was doing, or he tried to say that it's this way, and that there's no point to that.
Exactly.
Absolutely none.
Yeah, and it's I've never met him, or never met him, never trained with him, so I can't offer an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The only people I've heard about Ted Wong from is Sifu Dan, who described him as a very nice person,
Mm-hmm.
who he never thought would say anything bad about him. So I don't think that he believes that any of the negativity comes from Ted Wong.
Right.
Direct. And Siyoshiabi. And he told me the same thing. He said Ted Wong was a very nice, respectable person,
Yeah.
who was very kind. So that's my image of who he is. And that's all I've got. And so I'm not going to speak with any authority on that, because I never met him. So it would not be fair. And again, that kind of comes from my academic way of looking at it, or even just logical way of looking at it, and even just ethical way of looking at it. It would just not be a proper thing for me to comment on, other than what I've heard. And I'm just going to go with that. That's a good impression. I like that impression.
Yeah.
And that's the way I like to think about him anyway.
Yeah. Andy,
Right.
we've been going on without you interjecting.
Yeah. Yeah, my introvert has come out, so I'm like just having a good time listening to you two. Yeah, you know, somebody this delves into something that we were talking about at the base of all of these pieces of confusion, and you and Tim would know better than me. But I asked Guru Dan one time about spirituality and different things, and one of the things was a principle about reverence, about why is reverence, he's the most reverential person, you know. He sees the good, he tries to see the good in every single thing, and tries to learn something from every single person. And then he says he believes in giving credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
So like that sort of virtue, or this idea of trying to live in a virtuous way and be like that, will lead to some confusion especially when it comes to the whole thing is about style. Like, he wants to give respect to the places that inspired something, or something that might have there was some research that may have been done. It's out of reverence that he's doing it, as much as saying, you know, this is a major source, or that's a major source, or he took this or took that.
Right.
You know, absent an easy way to explain it, you know, sometimes the language gets taken too literally.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a background. You know, I was going to say, it's like Guru Dan isn't style centric. He's reverence centric, and he's never going to change. He's never going to. Yeah. He's never going to stop. He's never going to stop doing that.
And in all honesty, there's a part of me that thinks that that's actually personally injurious to him, because see, here's. Okay, so now I'm going to speak with authority on Dan Inosanto.
That's so funny.
Right?
Oh my God.
Okay.
So
the
crazy.
mistake he makes is in thinking that everybody else is on his same level. You see? Yeah. So he figures that he doesn't have to explain it in great detail. He'll say something and you will go think about it and delve deeply into it and come up with your own conclusions. He doesn't think that he has to say, okay, such and such and such. Now, what I want you to do is to go home and delve deeply into this, and at some point in the future, you come back to me with your conclusions. He figures that's what you're going to do.
Right.
Mhm.
Because that's what he's done since day one. So he figures everybody's doing this because I'm Dan Asano. I'm nothing special. It's what I do. So everybody's doing it as well. No, Sifu, everybody's not.
Right.
Right? There are some people out there who, for whatever reason, don't seem to be inclined to think for themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
That's hard.
Yeah.
Hard to, it really, if you think about it, I think once you get used to doing it, it's not hard. But I think if you don't do it regularly, you haven't done it, it's a hard thing to do, because then you got no one to blame but yourself too for any mistakes or perceived mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's another thing. Here's another fault of his. Right? He doesn't realize, I'm going to get crucified for this. He doesn't realize that when he gives credit to somebody else, like you were just talking about, Andy, that there are people in the audience who then think that he's being discredited somehow.
Right. Yeah.
They don't understand, right? They don't understand that he is so selfless that he does that. It's not self-diminishing for him to build someone else up.
Correct. Yeah.
You see?
Right.
Right. So tell me what you make of it, because Tim, you're the closest to him.
Yeah. I mean, that's very true. I think some of this kind of, if you go back to when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was getting popular and coming in, he saw the value in that pretty quick and went, and I would have to say probably 12 or more. I mean, every single one of the Machado brothers. And then there's, Aldo Maga, Clever Luciano, and there's, Hey Diego used to come and do a lot of stuff with him, who's phenomenal. And so, I mean, he got into the art and wanted to see a lot of people's opinions on that.
Yeah.
And he does that with pretty much everything. He likes to see how people approach things. And so he's very much an academic himself. And his approach is, I think that's why he gives credit, because he's got a master's degree. He was a teacher, an academic teacher at one time. So I think that's where that approach comes from, where he's credit. Plus, he establishes relationships along the way, and he's going to honor those relationships. But kind of jiu-jitsu thing, I think that's when people were going, oh my God, your JKD or what isn't good enough. You need to look at this thing and you need to do this thing. And I think that's, people got upset with him over that because he was diminishing Jeet Kune Do and he was diminishing himself. No, he's seeing value in something that he wants to have a look at. Right. And I'm not wrong with that at all.
Yeah. I overheard a conversation in Atlanta 20 plus years ago when he first started in BJJ. And the conversation was along the lines of, what? Dan Asano put on a white belt and started at the bottom with BJJ. And it's true. You'll hear certain people say, oh yeah, Bruce Lee said about Dan Asano towards the end, yeah, Dan's still searching. As if to imply that he should have stopped searching because, well, you met Bruce Lee, what's left?
Right. Well, that's a quote. That may be a quote or a hearsay, but what's the tone? What's the tone on when he said it? He could have been saying it in a very positive manner. Searching, like that's the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Still searching. What are you?
Yeah. But again, it's what we were talking about earlier. There are people who will put as negative a spin
Yeah, exactly.
as possible on everything that they hear.
Right.
I don't get it. It takes us back to the one about adding styles. Oh,
Yeah.
Sano is adding this and adding this and adding that. When?
Yeah, I mean, that's a bizarre one because I teach here at the academy, and there's a lot of classes, and at no point in the Muay Thai class do we go, and now you're a JKD guy. I was like, what? Or WTBA representative, so even the ranking in that art is going to come from Ajahn Chai, and so I've seen the test, I've cornered people for the tests and what have you, and at no point do they go, and now you're a JKD guy. That's what that would make no sense. They don't do that in the Kali, we don't do that in the Silat. These are just different courses in different arts. Now, talk about the quote unquote JKD approach, I can give you some insight, as Andy probably could, and because you've seen it, yourself, you've studied with Guru for decades now.
Yeah.
But that we're just taking these things and throwing them together and calling it Jeet Kune Do is just, I don't even know how that would work, to be honest with you. I can't even fathom what someone's mind when they're saying that. I don't even know what that looks like in their head.
Yeah, and the other thing is that you were talking about him being reverential and giving credit and what have you. That's how that multiple art schedule of classes came to be.
Right.
Because he would get involved with somebody, and then instead of being selfish about it, he would start a class for that person at the academy.
Right.
And next thing you know, that person is literally traveling the world doing seminars.
Right.
All because of Dan and Asano. And the best that some people can do with that is, he's adding styles and diluting Jeet Kune Do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
Well, the whole thing too, it bleeds into the T-shirt. Like, people want to diss on why you have like 20 logos on your T-shirt. It's not because you're studying 20 styles at the same time. It's because you're just being reverential for where you got your knowledge. Every person that goes there has a different mix, but it's just a sign of respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And again, I hope that people who hear us talking about this don't have this idea that we're saying, Dan and Asano is a perfect human being, who can do no wrong, has never done any wrong. Everything he's ever done has been, because I'll tell you this, I don't think he should ever have coined the phrase Jeet Kune Do concepts. Now, I know why he did it. I understand why he did it. When I say I don't think he ever should have, that's in hindsight, since all these problems were created because that phrase was coined.
Or was it because someone else decided to start writing original concepts? I don't, I think that boils down to another person who started writing that stuff.
Well, okay, I should rephrase what I said. I wish he had never coined it. Right? Let me rephrase what my meaning. I wish he had never coined it, because then problems would not have been caused for him.
Yeah.
You see?
No, it's an interesting name, because I've seen it in print, but I've been here at the Academy 17 years, and it's just not something we say. We don't use that phrase for what we do ever. So it's an interesting interesting phrase. It would be kind of interesting to see kind of where it came from and all that. Maybe I'll ask him sometime when we're out.
I mean, Andy, weigh in on this, but I think it was born out, again, being reverential and having made a promise to not teach JKD commercially. He figuratively bent over backwards to try to come up with a way to satisfy people's interest and desire to learn Bruce Lee's stuff without teaching it to them as he learned it, and therefore breaking his promise. So he went through all these machinations to, well, how, it's like, okay, how do I put this out there without putting it out there, but making sure it gets out there so it doesn't get lost and it doesn't die?
Yeah.
You know?
I think I was there at the very beginning of some of that. Like, we used to talk about, like, you would do a workshop in the first 2 hours, you do 10 different things, but it turns out really what we were doing was footwork, was step and slide. Mm-hmm. It was a commonality sort of thing. We talk about that, right. You know, and the principles of teaching, disguising repetition.
Right.
So we found these ways to be able to teach the essence. I hate that word, but the essence of the art without teaching it, right or wrong. You know, it seemed like that was a thing that was going on for a while. Mm-hmm. Especially on the seminar, but I mean, Tim, you know, in LA, I think it was always different, but yeah. I seem to remember.
Let me ask you this. Is it not absolutely fascinating to study something else? You know, so here I am, I'm training in this, I'm training in that. And then one day you come across somebody and they've got stuff and you're like, what? Is it not? I mean, is it, that's like, how do you go, oh, it's not JKD, so I don't need to look at what? Right? Yeah. I was making a joke about Tim, how's Salem doing? Have you guys heard?
I just talked with him on the phone 2 days ago. Okay. He's going to write an update. He's doing quite well. Sounds great. Okay. There's there, and I think he's got another surgery here in June. Okay. Bone graft, and then we're not exactly sure, you know, if they're going to be sending him home, send him into a rehab center for a little bit or what. But he sounds great. Okay.
Well, give him my regards next time you talk to him. But so on Tuesday in class this week, I was kind of making fun, and I was saying, yeah, you know, the first time I saw this guy, you know, a little skinny French guy, you know, walking like this, and I'm like, I don't think there's much there. And then he kicks you,
right,
5 times from different angles with the same leg without putting it down.
Right. Yeah.
And you go, oh, but it's not JKD, so let me move on. Really?
Yeah. I always thought the interesting thing about studying other things, like it was in Muay Thai in particular, you know, in Muay Thai, you know, it's like you could go, yeah, you can figure out how to knee, you can figure out how to elbow, but what's the most efficient way to solve certain problems? Those little tricks that you get that only somebody who's got 75 fights or 200 fights or 300 fights, the little tricks in the clinch and, you know, lifting the chin up and manipulations of the head that you're just not going to figure out with the flight time. So a smart person goes to somebody who can help you fill in the holes quickly if you need it. So I mean, I find that is the fascinating thing about cross training. And each one of the other area, you know, each area, you know, I tend to like I gravitated towards Savate over Muay Thai, did both of them, but I like Savate because I always wanted to be able to move like that. I like the multiple kicking, and it's faster. It's sort of put together, and I can take what I need from it without having to recreate the wheel. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Sifu Dan said it Tuesday night in class. We look at other things to understand what we do better. So we talk about the counter offensive systems. You know, you look at any physical competition, football, they look at what other teams do so they can mount a defense against it. The professional boxers are going to be cognizant of the style that the other boxer is bringing into the ring and learning how to defend against it. So there's that aspect of looking at other things. And then you guys know the sort of infamous picture that if you look at it one way, it's a beautiful lady in a hat, and you look at it another way, it's a long-faced, old, ugly lady.
Yep.
I look at it that way too. You can look at other things and you go, oh wow, there's something else in mine. It's almost it shares a lot of similar things to mine. Now I see mine different. I see possibilities to mine that I didn't see before. It's mind broadening. It's eye opening. You know, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah. Okay. See, so now think about this. So you've been with Ed Parker for a while. You're one of Ed Parker's top guys. You meet a skinny little kid from Seattle, and everything you try on him, he shuts you down. And instead of ignoring that and forgetting that, right, you become one of his, right?
Sure.
One of his most ardent followers. 60 years later, you got people criticizing you, right? When the truth is, had he not done that, would the three of us be having this discussion?
I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is probably no. There's a lot of things had not Steve and Sanzo done, none of us would be having these debates and arguments at all. I mean, we might, but we wouldn't have any level of experience in doing the things that we're doing.
I mean, think about it, right? Okay, and I'll even make it personal. If Dan and Asano had not suggested to Bruce Lee to open up a little place in Chinatown, Ted Wong would never have gone in, would never have had anywhere to visit.
Correct. Yeah.
If Jerry Poteet, Steve Golden, whoever, if that had never happened, if Dan and Asano had not gotten all these guys together so that Bruce Lee would, where would any of us be?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And again, it doesn't have anything to do with him being a perfect human being. Not at all. But let's be reverential.
Right.
Let's give credit. Let's look at it and go, I think a large percentage of this goes right back to him.
Right.
So now, having gone backwards and realized and accepted that, going forward, you're a little bit more respectful towards him.
Right.
Even if you disagree in some shape or form. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't get it. You
Yeah,
know,
I don't.
we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago, and people were like, really? But it happened to be, we were talking about Filipino martial art, and we were talking about disarms, right? And I go, okay, well, you know this thing we call the supplanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go, yeah. I go, well, what's the term for that? They go, quick release. I go, okay, so that's a quick release. I go, okay, so now when you go like this and you disarm, we call that strip, right? They go, yeah. I go, okay. Do you have any idea where those terms came from? They were like, well, that's Filipino martial art. I go, yeah. But you know, quick release is a football term,
Right.
as is strip.
Exactly.
They go, right. I go, you know, it's wholly possible that Dan and Asano is the person that came up with the names for these, because the old Filipino guys that he learned it from, they had no name.
Right. Yeah.
These techniques. So now all of us all over the world that are doing strip disarms, we owe that to a single individual. It's quite possible.
Yeah. Well, and Heaven Six, that was his mother's term for that movement, because the actual name in, I think, Visayan that they were using was really long, and she said, no, call it Heaven Six. And there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Six. Mother, especially for the FMA stuff, mother and father really influenced a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is the other thing too, because of course he gets flack because it's like, oh well, I've heard it expressed this way. He wanted to push the FMA more so than the JKD, right? And I'm thinking, you remember the part about not commercializing, right?
Right.
So now imagine this. You find a way, let's call it your personal cultural art happens to be a really good vehicle for putting this other stuff out there because there's so much commonality and so much crossover.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
You see, so now,
Or Dwight, it's also add the idea that your great friend and instructor was really passionate about putting Chinese culture out there through movies, and you had all sorts of discussions with them for all these years, and then you have an opportunity to push your heritage and your culture out there as well, and do good for your community. That's also something which is what we were doing, you know.
yeah.
So I think, you know, that's kind of a lesson there. It's to be respected. It may not be your thing, but at least you could understand it.
Yeah, but okay, so now look at that. So now he's actually, when you think about it, he's responsible for what? He's responsible for the preeminence of two factors in the martial art world.
I would say at least 4, but yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Big shoes.
Yeah. I mean, no, you're right, because Ken O'Neill in St. Louis. Did you guys see this one? 1985 Muay Thai seminar with Ajahn Chai.
Oh yeah, I haven't
You
watched
see
all
that?
Parts fit, yeah.
Because Jay D'Amato had told me many years ago that they had the video of it, but I had never seen it. And then I forget how I came across it. Somebody probably posted it somewhere. But the guy who posted, I think it was David Tice. And what he's saying is, look at this. A 49-year-old Dan Inosanto right alongside people much younger than him,
Mhm.
doing the work.
Right.
You know,
And then the 70-year-old Dennis Hano takes up capoeira and is doing cartwheels.
yeah. I mean, you know, because so I think you're right, Tim, because if I remember correctly, that 1985 Muay Thai seminar was Ajahn Chai's first like on the road gig.
Oh, wow.
I think it was. And then by 1986, 12 months later, Smoky Mountain had started.
Yeah.
And that went on for 10 years and created monsters like Rick Fay and Greg Nelson.
Right.
You know, so in a way, we can blame Dan and Asano for creating those two monsters.
A lot of good instructors. Yeah, shame.
I mean, you know, it's like, what's the point? What's the point of trying to break him down and couch it in, oh no, it's just historical truth that I'm trying to point out and whatever, when no, it's your spin, it's your opinion on something that happened. It's not historical truth.
Right. Well, it leads to weird logical conclusions. You know, what is being said sometimes you think, well, you're telling me that either Dan Asano is a liar, which I don't think so. I don't think there's a lot of evidence to that. Or he's nefarious and up to something. I don't see that. I mean, he's up to, yeah, he wants to teach a lot of people, you know, about culture and martial arts. It doesn't sound like a terrible thing. Or you can say the same thing they're indicating about Bruce Lee, that this guy was somehow devious and wanted to pit his students against one another. That sounds terrible. I don't know if they understand that that's what they're implicating, but that seems to be a conclusion that can be drawn from what they say, or that he was just ignorant as to what the people around him were doing. When if Dan Osano's saying one thing and the truth is this, and certificates faked and all these kinds of things, well, this was all done when he was alive. So was he that slow at picking things up? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, it just seems like a lot of things are thrown out there, so to speak, and they want to see what sticks to the wall. It's like, okay, well, if you put it all together, it comes out to some very strange potential conclusions, none of which I think are true.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think also that some people forget, or maybe they just don't know. Because for us today, it's a big thing. But back in the 90s, 70s, it wasn't. It
Right.
was a garage backyard thing.
Right.
It wasn't a worldwide phenomenon, a worldwide movement that was the baby of a fantastically, fabulously famous individual. It wasn't that. It was a bunch of guys, in a backyard.
Right. Sweating,
Right.
pads, yarn, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doing the hard work.
So, I mean, again, to me, it goes back to the idea, well, thank God somebody did something to preserve it. Otherwise, where would a lot of us be?
Right. Exactly.
So, again, you look at, you realize what you kind of have to take on the humanity aspect of it. All right, so
Right.
Nobody's going to do anything perfectly.
Right.
Right? My take has always been people are doing the best that they can with what they have and what they know.
Correct.
I think that's always a better way to approach things than to try to ascribe some kind of value to what it is that they've done, what it is that they've said, or what have you. I mean, you just alluded briefly to something there, Tim. I hadn't even heard this, that there was an idea that the certificates are fake.
Yeah, I'd seen that a while back too, that someone was saying,
Man.
I think, Andy, didn't you say something about that too? Like,
Yeah, there's a conspiracy theory out there because all the signatures are there. It's like Dan Inosanto on one and Daniel A in another, and they're signed on the same day, and there's a smudge on one,
Right.
and yet he still taught for a couple of years, and was,
Yeah.
it's just like I don't get it.
So what if, right? What if one day they're like cleaning up, and clearing out stuff, and Bruce Lee says, "Oh, Dan, look, here are the 3 certificates. Let me just sign them. You fill them in whenever you want." What if it was just something as informal as that? Because it was like, "Oh, I should probably give you a certificate. All right, well, okay, here are the 3 different ones. Let me just sign all of them. Let me date them and sign them, and then you fill them in or something." What if it was just that, because it wasn't a big deal?
Sure. Or Bruce
Nobody,
Lee's,
right?
I'm going to call you
Huh?
here. It could have been Bruce Lee's sense of humor, because Guru Dan told me, I think for his birthday once, he was questioning him about the liver punch and why it was so effective. Bruce Lee punched him in the liver and then gave him a birthday cake and laughed about it. He's like, dark sense of humor, but it was funny. And I'm like, okay. And it could have just be his humor. Sense of knows.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean a deep, dark conspiracy. I mean, that's just the, silly.
Yeah, it's all pretty, I think sometimes people should ask themselves, what would I have done if it had been me, if this responsibility? Because here's the other thing I think that people don't think about. Somebody who has had major impact on you dies suddenly.
Right.
And all of a sudden,
Everyone looks to
people
you.
turn into you. And you had never once thought, because, well, he said, okay, go to the backyard. So now we're in the backyard, but he's still in Hong Kong and he'll check in and whatever and whatever and whatever. But now all of a sudden it's like, what do I do now? You know? And so there's in the Art and Philosophy book, there's the letter from Steve McQueen.
Yeah, which I think was many, right? There was a lot of people encouraging him.
Yeah, but notice what it says. I don't think it's commercializing for you to do it. So obviously, even somebody like Steve McQueen, some way, somehow, was aware that Inosanto had this issue with being considered commercial.
Right.
You know, Steve McQueen knew about it.
Right.
Yeah. So now that should give us greater insight into what was going on in his mind. Okay, well, so now how do I do this? Okay, well, we'll call it the Kali Academy.
Right.
You know, that way nobody will ever be able to say, oh, Dan, you opened up a school to start commercializing Jeet Kune Do.
Right.
No, he goes to great pains again. The Kali Academy, and I think that the sign that you see in Way of the Warrior, it's Filipino Kali Academy and Chinese boxing.
Right.
Yep.
You know? And years later, oh, he's adding styles. Oh.
Yeah, or he's changing this and changing that.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to point that out because like he said earlier, Tim, Andy likes to sit back and observe, right? And then I did actually pull it up here. Let me see if I have.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And then
I was probably in a pissy mood that night, whatever it is.
Right? And then he goes and he does. Wait, do I have it? Oh man, let me see. And will it show up in the stream?
Yeah, poor Andy. Hot seat now. He's like, what's coming up here?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's this one.
I got you back, whatever.
No, it's not.
All right, man. Thank you.
No, it's not that one. Okay, hang on. I gotta try to. But here's what it is. Okay, so it's the whole simple angulated attack thing.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I remember the first time I came across that, I was like, oh yeah, he's right. It is simple. I had never thought about it. But then as I read, I go, well, it makes perfect sense because simple attacks are comprised of a single motion.
Correct. Yeah,
so at some point, 20 years later, somebody might have said simple instead of single, and maybe it sounded the same, and so it became. Again, it's not like you said earlier, Tim, it's not nefarious.
Right.
It's just the natural evolution of something, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing about that.
Andy goes and finds, right, in the desert where simple has been transposed and single is written in.
Right.
So you would think that somebody would come back and go, wow, Andy, that's pretty good. I never even noticed that myself. I think I will now quash this discussion and let everybody know, looks like I was wrong about this.
Yeah.
Or
the other, but the other part about it is, just in all due respect, it's like I understand the trying to go back and go, this is what Bruce Lee teach. There is a value to that, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
And to a certain extent, it needs to be done. I like it, but the whole thing that it drives me crazy, and this will get me in trouble, is this whole thing about the only thing that you can really trust is going back to the writings. It drives me absolutely bonkers from a like we were talking about, from a historical basis or a research basis or anything like that, because you don't know what Bruce Lee and Gurdjieff and all these guys how they were referring to it when they trained. It's like, maybe, like you're saying, maybe they referred to it more as SDA than SAA. You know, so we don't know. And the only, I say this over and over again, the humbleness that everybody needs to have is that we don't know. We weren't there. So let's just not take it too far in criticizing the people that were.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and do we understand it? No matter what we're calling it, do we understand it? Are we on the same page with it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is difference so trivial that it doesn't really matter?
Right.
No, to me, it's a categorization thing. You can call it anything. It's like the same with the race. I've categorized it however you want. In my opinion, my responsibility is to my students. Do they understand what we're doing, what we're talking about, what we mean by these things? And if they don't, there's some arts that have, there's a thing called just warfare, combat. How many ranges are there? Well, there's intercontinental ballistic missile range, right? All the way down on the ground with a knife with each other range. That's a lot of ranges there in real warfare. So, it's how you categorize it. There's no right or wrong way to do that. There's teaching people, and does that student understand? And maybe I have to change it for another, because I don't understand it the same way.
Yeah.
That's my responsibility, is to teach that student, not to be so hooked on something that, they're concentrating on the finger and missing all the heavenly glory, to bring it back.
Right.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Again, going back to the humanity of it all. Guess what? Somebody at some stage is going to get it wrong. They're going to misinterpret something. They're going to misperceive something. And they might not be aware of it.
Right.
And they have a following. And so they start, they enunciate their misconception and their misperception, but they have a following. And so that gets repeated and perpetuated.
Right.
But its actual origin might not have been factual. So now, you could look at that and you could go, oh man, it's unfortunate that happened. Or it could turn into a big thing, which is why, remember when Chris Kent issued a retraction where he said, in the Junfan textbook, we wrote about flowing from style to style. And he says that was not the correct way to express it. That takes guts. That's a guy who obviously is still in pursuit of the truth. That's a guy who obviously, decades later, is still trying to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to do that. He's Chris Kent.
Right.
He has a unique place in the history of Jeet Kune Do, but he has the guts to say, I could have said it better. Right now, I bring that up just to indicate that along the way, we're going to get things wrong. So you clean it up as you go. But this idea, this idea that, well, nobody's allowed to mess up. And then the same thing with Bruce Lee. Come on. You think he had, like Andy was talking about, you think he had it all figured out? There's no way. There's no way. He might have had a lot of stuff figured out, but to be like, in July of 1973, whatever it is that he had shown or taught or written down, that was it. And had he lived on, there would have been nothing else. There would have been no more direction to go in. Everything was there. And so since he died, we just deal with everything that was there, and we don't use our own minds.
Right.
You know, we don't use our own minds. We don't channel Bruce Lee and move ourselves forward based on what the path that he blazed for us. Now, it's this. His life was cut off, and my learning was therefore cut off. I'm done. I'm not moving forward.
Right. Now make sure you fit into his suit size and everything else too. Yeah.
I mean, what aspect of the JKD mentality is that?
None that I know of.
Yeah.
I mean, one I haven't read about yet, but that's not one that I know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it either, right? Anyhow, all right. So listen, guys, let's put a wrap on this. But again, I'll go first, but I'm sure you two will want to say it your way too. I got no issues. Look, one of the reasons why this whole Jeet Kune Do Dialogues thing was started and continues is because I want to ask questions. And I especially want to ask questions of people who, let's use the word faction again. I especially want to ask questions of people who might be from a different faction, who might look at things differently, who might have a different JKD origin than mine, because that's how I learn more. That's how I increase the store of my own knowledge. I don't want to hang out as much as I love you guys, I don't want to hang out with just you. You know, I want to hear from the guys in Africa who are trying to do a JKD thing.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I even want to hear from the guys in India, because they're very intriguing to me. You know, the whole World Jeet Kune Do Federation thing. Like, at some point, I really do want to talk to them and go, okay, so, tell me a little about how this came about. So I want people who hear this to understand, I do not have a problem with anybody else, even if we get engaged in vibrant discussion and I go, I do not agree with you and I don't like how you're portraying this. That does not mean that personally I think that there's something wrong with you. So that's my take on it. You guys want to say something about that?
Andy, you want to go first?
Oh. I agree with you, and that's actually something I was hoping to express on here too. That I nothing against the other factions, the other camps, whatever we want to call them. I still consider it the same family. In fact, here's a quick story about that. There was I'd been Kazakhstan. That's actually where I taught the academic writing. Was at and when I come back here, there was a seminar given by a guy by the name of Antonio Graceffo here in LA, and he was teaching a lot of kind of very interesting Southeast Asian martial arts that he had learned going around Bokhatar from Cambodia, so on and so forth. So one of my training partner here at the time had said, hey, let's go down and check this out. So a handful of us went down there, and another group came in, and they were I think an original Jeet Kune Do group, or whatever these sort of terms are. When they came in, it was funny. Graceffo kind of goes, oh, hey, these guys are whatever. You guys want to fight or something like that? And we kind of looked at him like, what? What are you talking about? And poor kids, they were younger kids, and they kind of looked at us. And I mean, Chris Bruce is like my size, 6'4", 250 pounds. We're a couple of big dudes, and with other people that are pretty good size, and they're just like, oh my God, what's this all about? And we just told him, we said, well, as far as we're concerned, we're all the same family, so no, there's nothing to fight about with these guys. We're happy they're here. In fact, we're hoping to be friends. I think there's a couple of them I actually still keep in touch pretty regular. So I don't look at those groups as being something different. Mm-hmm. We're all related, we're all in the same family, and I appreciate and respect what they do. I don't know what they do, to be honest with you, that much. So I'm kind of glad that you would suggest the video thing. So I'm able to see what a few of them are doing, and it's very And like you said, I want to see it too, because I'm going to get ideas from it. I'm going to learn from them. See, Dan has always told us, you learn from everybody. You learn from the beginner student who's coming in that you're helping. You learn from your compadre, and you learn from the person who knows more than you. You learn from everybody.
Yeah.
And so I like that. And I want to learn. I don't want to learn so much from the pettiness, like, oh, well, here's this factoid and that factoid. I'm not really interested in playing Trivial Pursuit. I'm interested in training. And if you've got that type of thing, I'm going to dig that. I'm going to love it. There was a really good Wing Chun set, dummy set that I think Keith Myers put up the other day. Really nice. Great detail in it. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I really like. And I respect people that are doing that. And especially if you're willing to put some video up of you doing some stuff, you know you're going to get the arrows flung at you. You've got a spine. Good for you. I'm backing you up all the way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for my part, I just I'd go back. I just want people to be respectful with each other. And you know, I think Tim and I are kind of like, yeah, or we got to call you out if you're not not being respectful or not being accurate. But that doesn't mean we don't like you or don't or we don't think everybody has something to share.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and I think when we all want a deeper understanding of the material that we've got, and I think a lot of the other factions have, and to some extent, deeper things that we can learn from them. So I want to keep those doors open. I definitely don't want to create enemies.
You know what's interesting? I don't know if you guys ever saw this one, but I think somebody had put up a question about that. You know, the whole thing about Jun Fan can be structured, but Jeet Kune Do cannot, and whatever. And then you're right. And then the reply was, no, there is a Jeet Kune Do curriculum, and it was put on display at the nucleus, whatever and whatever. And so then there was this whole listing of the Jeet Kune Do curriculum. I think it was the Oakland and the LA, or maybe Seattle and Oakland, or whatever. I took a look at it and I go, well, this is all the stuff that I learned within Asano.
Right.
Just the whole, what is this thing?
Yeah.
So I don't get it. Anyhow, all right, gentlemen, thanks again. I'm not going to take up any more of your time, right? I'm sure we'll get comments on this. You don't have to go through them. I will. But this is probably the last time that I will be paying attention to any of the frivolity on the I Love Jeet Kune Do page. From now on, it's like, look, if it's not substantive, I'm not dealing with it.
Yeah.
I might not delete it, right? It's my page. I might not delete it, but I'm not joining in.
Well, I hear it the same way. I don't want to engage if I don't feel the person qualified to be making the statements they are. I don't need to argue with them. And I almost say it's complimentary to you. If I'm engaging with you for any period of time, it means that I think that you're qualified in some way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So thanks again, gentlemen. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We'll talk again.
Thank you.
All righty. You guys take care.
Take care. Bye.
Right.
That was episode 177 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. You can find both Tim Becherer and Andy Wilson online Facebook. You can also find Tim at the Inasano Academy of Martial Arts and Andy over at MKG Seattle. You can follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. Next Friday, May, 21st, we should be on with Lee Richardson out of the United Kingdom, and that should be at regular 6 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully we'll see some of you at that time, or maybe we'll see some of you next Wednesday for an issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. In any case, until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy your weekend, and talk soon. See you soon. Take care.